these people are coming after me as a person. They were coming after Erin Carey, not Wilson girls basketball.
So you think the Democratic Party cares about Black people? Believe it or not, Rex, I think that tweet is part of the problem. Do you feel like we could have addressed this homeless issue much sooner? You have to speak a word, make it a good one.
Okay, let's go.
Welcome back to The Word with Jackie Ray podcast, brought to you by the Long Beach Post. I'm, of course, your host, Jackie Ray. I don't want to say excited, but I am very honored for my guest today, because if you don't know about me, I do cover a variety of things, not only for the Long Beach Post, but I also cover sports for several different outlets. And one of the disturbing trends that I've been reporting on, especially this last year, is the verbal berating of coaches from Pop Warner to high school, and sometimes even physical. In fact, last year in Virginia, there was a man who was arrested after savagely beating a soccer coach, and I was following that case for quite some time. It's happening across our country, and unfortunately, it's happening here in Long Beach as well. So my guest today actually took a very, I want to say progressive, because we don't see a lot of coaches doing this type of thing. But Erin Carey is joining me right now. She is the former head coach of the girls basketball team at Wilson High School, and she decided to take matters into her own hands before things got a little too far. So I'm so glad, Erin, that you're taking time to join me today and share your voice. I think this is a topic that needs to be addressed. So welcome.
Yeah,
welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So let's just start. Let's go back a while. When did you decide, head coaching specifically at the high school level was something that you wanted to do, and what was that road for you?
So it's actually kind of an interesting story. I don't think I ever thought of myself as a high school head coach. I played the sport. I loved the sport. Loved being around it. Didn't have a ton of coaching experience. So I came on in Wilson in 2015 as an assistant coach. Loved it. It was perfect. I was planning on being in that role for a while before I even thought about, there's so much to learn, right? As a coach. That's not how Wilson had it planned. They ended up moving the head coach at that time over to take over the boys program. He's still there. And then had me take over the girls program. So it was just kind of a turn of events where it kind of fell in my lap. And I was thankful and blessed that I had mentors that I could go to get support. And starting in 2016, I was the head coach of the girls basketball program at Wilson, which is just kind of crazy.
And then it was a steady progression from there, because under your tutelage, you guys won a championship. So do you want to brag about that for a moment?
I will brag about that. It was awesome. That was a great year. So it was 2020. So unfortunately, it was COVID year. So it was kind of a funky year. So we ended up going into CIF March of that COVID year. We're able to play all the way through CIF, won the CIF championship game in overtime. It was amazing. It still to this day gives me chills, goosebumps. I'll watch the 562 video every once in a while, and it just it brings me chills. Right after that, COVID started really breaking out. So we were able to play our first round of state, and then everything got shut down after that. The only bummer about that was it kind of took the celebration away from the kids. They didn't get the pomp and circumstance you would if the things were open. But I had a great group of kids. They handled it really well. All 5 seniors ended up going to play college ball. Couldn't ask for anything better.
So talk about, because I still remember I ran track. I played high school basketball as well. Mr. Annalini was our coach for both teams. And I still to this day, there's things that he has said to me or instilled in me that impact me as an adult. So talk a little bit about how you're not just a coach for the sport, but you're really helping nurture young women.
Yeah, 100%. I still talk to my high school coach this day. She's one of my mentors that I talked to her about this situation. I talked to her about playoff games. I sent her game film. I think the relationship you build with the kids goes way beyond the sport. I know about their boyfriends, their girlfriends. I know if they're, nervous about a test. I know about college applications. I'm writing letters of rec. I'm sitting down having conversations when they're upset about something or they had a bad day. Basketball, the X's and O's of basketball is really minimal, especially at the high school level. That's kind of where we do the least amount. And I was thankful to have good coaches in my life that taught me you can use basketball. I can use a practice plan and teach you all sorts of life skills. And that's what we're more about, especially at that girls' high school level. The number of kids that are going to go on and play elite at the next level or even beyond that is very minimal. So what can we, instill in them through their athletic mindset that helps them become a better, stronger, more confident woman in the workforce.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, my Mr. Annalini, I was having issues in school, and we're not going to go into those issues,
No,
but
of course not.
but if it hadn't been for him, literally, so he was the first person outside of my dad who sat down and was like, "What is going on?"
Yep.
And just wouldn't let me leave that room until I really verbalized that, and really helped me learn how to communicate. He really just helped me understand that it's okay to feel a certain way, and it's okay to verbalize that.
And you are not the only one.
Yes. And that's such a lesson, especially for young women. I think that we're so used to having to, put ourselves in this little box so we
Yep.
don't offend and
Yep.
things of that nature. And now as an adult, I don't have kids, but as an adult, I would just think as a parent, your kids are in school more than they're home with you.
Yep.
And then if they do extracurricular activities, that's another person that can be an outlet to really help shape young minds. Why do you think there's this disconnect between parents and faculty and teachers and coaches?
I think the disconnect comes from you don't want to ever admit that your kid isn't the best, right? You have this mindset that your kid can do anything. They're going to be the best at what they are as long as they try hard, that I think parents and players, kids too, don't want to be told that they're not the best at something, or that maybe that's not their strong suit. And they've been playing this Gino clip all over Instagram where he talks about like knowing your role, right? And if you're going to be a passer, then be the best passer there is. It's not going to get your name in the newspapers, but he searches for these role player kind of kids. And I think the mindset is if they're not the leading scorer and, getting their name up in lights, that they're not contributing. And I think that's where a lot of that comes from. So parents don't want to hear me say, your kid's great, good attitude, works hard, just not the most talented on the team. And we're doing the kids a disservice if we don't tell them that. Not every manager is going to tell them they're the best employee. How can you take that adversity and work with it to make yourself a better, stronger individual? That's the bigger lesson. But I think I don't think parents really like hearing that about their kids.
Right. Now, tell me some of the first hints that maybe parents were getting a little too aggressive. Did that happen while you were an assistant coach, or did it start right when you became a head coach?
No, it actually just came about the last couple of years. Pre-COVID, okay. I had a really successful parent. All my parents were, interacting with me in a positive manner. They respected, not always agreed with me, but at least respected that I was the coach and those were the decisions I was going to make. We often, make decisions that parents don't agree with, but they also don't see all the practice time and the attitudes and the stuff that goes into the decisions that we make. But they were respectful of those decisions. The last couple of years, the parents are just different. Kids are different. Parents are different. I don't know if it's a COVID thing we can blame it on. I don't really know what the shift was. But parents are definitely more, I guess, involved is a nice way to say it. They're more present. They're more vocal. They're making their viewpoints known, whether you want to hear them or not. And I think there's a little less respect for that coach-parent boundary. I think a lot of the parents are trying to coach as well. And I think that's a detriment to the sport, to be honest.
When was your first really strong, this is becoming a little too common? Was there one interaction that you can cite that you were like, I don't know how I feel about this?
The end of last year, I had a few text message conversations with parents. I try not to do a lot over text because it's so misconstrued, but with scheduling and everything, it's hard not to. And that's just kind of the way the world is, I think, these days, where it was kind of like, oh, okay. Like we're going to have to talk about this a little different because there isn't that boundary where you're just going to trust me to be the coach to coach your daughter, that you're going to question the decisions that I'm making. And one of the big ones that always came down to, and I always thought it was so weird, is I don't let my girls play with D's or F's. So the CIF rule is to have a 2.0. I think a 2.0 is very minimal. Yes. So I don't let my girls play with D's or F's. I make that very clear from the front. It's in my contract. And it's for the benefit of their girls, right? We've got to graduate. We've got to get our lives together and learn all the things we need to learn. So they're on the team. They can practice. They can do everything. I give them study hall tutoring, but they won't play in a game. And I had parents come and were just livid over that. And I was like, I don't know. It just seemed like such a no-brainer to me that, I'm just trying to help your daughter be successful. So that was one that was kind of a red flag. Like, why are we mad about this? Another one would be playing time. It's not AYSO anymore. The Moore League is extremely competitive. We're with, some of the top teams in the state. And so we're putting the most talented kids out there, the best chance we have to at least be as competitive we can. If we can't win the game, we'll be as competitive as we can. And that means that sometimes your daughter might not play or won't play as much as some of the other kids. And I think there still is that mindset of, well, my daughter shows up every day and I help with the fundraising and I do whatever, so she should play. It's not how it is at the high school level anymore.
Right. Well, it's not how it is at the professional level either. So if that's the ultimate goal, like, make it make sense. But when you talked about the D's or F's, that's the part that really resonates to me, because it's less than 1% of these kids are ever going to make it to the college level, and then only less than 1% from there are going to make it to the league.
Yep.
You have to have a plan, and that plan is probably not going to come to fruition if you got D's and F's.
Exactly.
So what's that conversation like when you explain, hey, education is important, and this is why I have this rule? What is that conversation like?
Yeah, it then they kind of dig into the details of it as well. If they had a bad test the day before the game, that's not it. I'm doing grade checks all the way throughout. I'm on my girls as soon as I see them start to dip. How can we get you tutoring? What I reach out to teachers on their behalf to try and get makeup assignments. So it came down to really the timing of the decision making I was doing, and then kind of the thought process behind it. So if CIF says a 2.0 is fine and the district says a 2.0 is fine, then why do you have this? Thankfully, I had the backing from my admin team, our athletic director. Our boys program does the same thing. So it was just kind of a Wilson, it's just one of those things. You can either buy in and do the work, which isn't much, by the way, to get a C. You're not going crazy, right? So just, kind of grit your teeth and do the bare minimum, and you're going to be fine. Now, there were girls that really struggled in a certain class, or there was a teacher that we knew that just didn't like athletes, or, there were always circumstances that we would, kind of turn the other way, or give them a little bit of leeway and let them play while they were doing some work or whatever. So, I mean, it was flexible. It wasn't a hard line in the sand, but I think the parents didn't like that it was my decision that I did it. So it was kind of like I was the one not letting their daughter play, even though their daughter was doing, the minimum that was required. So I think that maybe rubbed them the wrong way. Maybe it was a power thing. I don't really know. I never really was able to make 2 cents out of it. Because then once their daughters at the end of the year were passing with all C's or better, they were real happy.
Right,
we just had to get through the trenches to get there. But I think it's just, seeing their kids sit on the sidelines. You're mad at me for not letting them play with these, but you're not mad at your kid for not turning their work in. Like, where's the blame? We're kind of blaming the wrong people.
Did you ever have someone confront you at a game in a very public setting?
Not about the grades. I've had parents come up to me after games about playing time, subbing decisions I made, taking off a press, leaving on a press. I've been yelled at from the sideline. I've been called a bully. I've had dads yell at my timeouts, telling the kids not to listen to myself or my coaches. They just they lose their temper. And after the game, most of the time, I'd like to say most of the time they'll figure it out and apologize, but the damage is done now. Those girls have heard you say that. My coaches have felt that. Other parents have seen. It's just not a good look for my program either, So it was just all that stuff. Kind of you pack it away and you get over it and you move on, and then something else happens. And this last year, it just got to the point where you dedicate all this, you sacrifice all your time away from your family, and I'm leaving work early, I'm taking vacation times, I'm doing all this other stuff. And it was like, for what? These people are coming after me as a person. They were coming after Erin Carey, not Wilson girls basketball. They were, This was me. And it was personal. And then it just got down to, for Mike G said it the best. He's like, what do you mean, for pennies, the pennies that you make, and all the time you're sacrificing, you have to weigh your options. And it was just weighing on me. I wasn't enjoying it anymore. It wasn't a fun, I wasn't looking forward to it every day like I used to.
Mm-hmm. Was there a tipping point? Was there a moment where you were like, enough? Can you tell me what that was?
Yeah. So that was this year, right before I stepped down. We had some issues in the program. Parents weren't happy about some things. Thankfully, my admin team, Wilson's got an amazing admin team. I have to shout out, they gave me more support than I think I could have asked for. Met with them often, we're meeting with them, trying to figure out the best way to handle it, meeting with our athletic director, trying to figure out the best way to handle it. I met with the girls. There was still some hemming and hawing going on in the background. Instagram was blowing up because now everything goes on social media. So that was going. So we decided to have a parent meeting where we could just say, like, you're going to voice your concerns. Coach Carey's going to get to rebut if she wants to, or address your issues. And then we're going to go from there. And the things that were said in that parent meeting about me and who I am and what I do, there was just no coming back from that. I couldn't go and coach, and it wasn't the kids. The kids were great. The kids have been great through the whole entire thing. I wasn't going to be able to coach your daughter knowing that this is what you're feeding them and what you're giving me during games, sideline, after. You don't agree with me, you don't believe in anything I'm doing, you don't stand behind me, you don't trust me. So like, why am I here?
I'm just trying to process the mind trip that you had to be going through going into that meeting, knowing you were going into a place where people wanted to verbally attack you, and for you to just stand there in integrity and just, that had to be difficult.
It did. I mean, I went in with hope. I know they call me ignorant. I don't know. I went in with hope that we were going to be able to sit down as adults and, talk through things. I really didn't. I couldn't wrap my head around the fact that people genuinely believed some of the things they said. Like I've been at Wilson for years. You sent your kid to play for, like, it's Wilson School of Choice. You could have sent your kid anywhere, and you sent them to play for me. So there must have been a point where you actually, researched it, looked me up, followed me, came to games, did whatever. And we went from you being so excited for your daughter to play for me to you want to come after my character and get me fired and go to the district over playing time. Like, what? It just doesn't make any sense. Yeah, I went into it hoping it was going to be better than it was, and I left a crushed individual. It was very difficult.
So walking out of that and feeling crushed, what did you do to build yourself back up?
So came home that night. Thankfully, my wife is an extremely supportive coach's wife. So she was
have to be right.
Oh yeah, you can't do this job if you don't have somebody on your back for sure. So we just kind of talked through everything, and obviously we've been talking about it with my assistant coaches going up to that meeting. I talked to my mentors, then my high school coach, called her, prayed about it, and just woke up the next morning, couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. And when you get to your volunteer job, doing that, it just comes down to, I'm not gonna do it. I'm not gonna keep showing up to be the punching bag for these parents. And so the next day was when I met with the admin and told them I was going to step down.
Now, I saw they issued a response to that, but in that one-on-one conversation, what did they say to kind of help build you back up as well?
I mean, they were amazing the night after the meeting. Like, none of this is you. They were very supportive and encouraging for me. Apologized for some of the things that were said. Not that they can't. I mean, you can't tell people not to say things. So it wasn't their place to apologize for, but they did. And then in that meeting, how can we get you to stay? We don't want you to go. We don't, this will be a huge loss for Wilson. How can we support you more? And that was really the tough part. Everyone in the aftermath was like, oh, well, the admin team doesn't support. Well, they do, but how much, what else can they do? They can't tell someone not to post on their Instagram. They can't tell somebody to not send a text message or say things in public, or, so there was only so much they could do to stop what was happening. And I also felt like, as I've been hearing other coaches, I had to deal with this mom chasing me after practice or sending me messages about, if her daughter was going to start the next game and this, that, and the other. And it kind of just got to the point where I was like, enough's enough. And I'm going to, not that I'm, Carl Bugs at Poly, but I'm kind of a name. And so I was like, I'm going to put my foot down and just say, you can't treat people like this. And leaving midseason sucked for my girls. That was a gut punch for me, for my team, I'm sure for the administration. But I felt like the parents would have won if I would have just sucked it up and said, okay, and dealt, and then deal with it at the end of the season. That to me is how, because everyone says, oh, the parents won because you left and the season no, the parents they would have won if I would have just kept my mouth shut. And that's one of the main motivations I didn't, is because it's not just happening to me. The second that story went out, I got messages from people in Ohio, Alabama. I mean, people were just everywhere. Thank you so much. I'm stepping down at the end of this season because you finally gave us a voice for us to do this. So it just proved it needed to be talked about, and it stunk that it happened in the way that it did, being a mid-season step down. But there was no going forward after that.
Yeah, I want to read, because like you said, the Wilson principal, Suzanne Caverly, right? And Caverly, and then assistant principal Stacey Alexander, they did write a letter. And I thought it was great, the statement that they made, because they said it's unfortunate that the condition of the girls program resulted in the loss of such a quality coach at Wilson High School. It is unimaginable that we will be able to replace the spirit, character, professionalism, and expertise that Coach Carey brought to the Wilson girls basketball program and overall school community. If I was a parent and I read that statement after I acted like I've lost my mind, I would feel so convicted. Right. And I would have to reach out to you personally and say, hey, I was part of the problem. I don't know why I lost my mind for a second, but I'm sorry. Did you get any of those calls after that statement was issued?
I didn't get phone calls, but I did get some text messages of parents kind of recanting, and, I maybe spoke out of pocket, or this came off the wrong way. This wasn't what we wanted. But hindsight's 2020, right? Once it's done, it's really easy to go back and go, oh, wait. No, I didn't want you to do that. But not everyone, not the main ones, not the ones that really were the detriments. Those are still unspoken. And the crazy part, I told Mike, some of the kids whose parents were, in the I don't know, the main voices, if you will, they pulled their kids out of the school. So it's like, why even do this if you're not even going to have your kid finish playing at Wilson? Like, if I was the problem, right now I'm gone, then, give this new.
Oh, so they pulled their kids after you stepped down? What was the point of that?
That's why I was like, you just lit this dumpster fire and threw it in the middle of the street and just walked away. I found that interesting. So I don't know. I mean, it just proves parents are going to, I don't know where their kids are now. I wish the two daughters are amazing. They'll be successful wherever they go. But I just hope that this was an eye opener for them, that they can't just pick their kid up, go somewhere else and do the same thing. But
do you feel like this is a kind of a byproduct of our society where people lead with whatever they want to say instead of leading with respect?
100%. And I think social media has a lot to do with it. It's really easy to have a big voice when you're not face to face with somebody, right? And then once it gets out of hand, you got to double down and stay with that, or you got to really recant and look apologetic. And there's only, that decision has to happen really quick. But I think a lot of it comes from, it's really easy to sit behind a keyboard or a phone and, be the expert of whatever the topic is. You know better, you felt better, you understand it more, whatever it is. And I think that's it. Parents are sitting at travel ball practices and they think that makes them qualified to coach teams. It's completely different. But I do think we're very reactionary, just as people now. I don't know. Again, I don't know if it's a COVID thing. I don't know what it is, but we're very quick to just react before we take a step back to think, take a breath and create a thought before we just blurt out the first thing on our minds. And I'm guilty of that as well. If you've ever watched me coach, I'm a very reactionary coach. So I'm a yeller, I'm a pacer. So I'm guilty of that as well.
I'm very much guilty of that. My poor neighbors, anytime I'm watching a game, they probably think there's 50 people in this house. It's just me. So I get it. But I also understand that you are vital to shaping the lives of young people. And I just wonder if the parents, or maybe you have a thought on what message this sends to the girls, that these parents could basically berate somebody to the point where they have to take care of themselves, they have to take care of their mental health, and they have to put themselves first and step away from something that they love. What kind of message do you think that sends?
Well, and that was kind of the big thing when a lot of the feedback was, again, oh, these poor girls and what you left them hanging mid-season. First things first, I text my girls yesterday. Like I still talk to all of them. Well, the ones that want to anyway. I'm writing letter of recs for girls that are getting their college applications in. So I was extremely transparent with my team all season long through all the little issues we had that weren't, even brought to admin attention, just little things we had between our team, little things we had between a parent and a kid. All my practices are open. I'm not going to say anything to your child that I wouldn't say in front of you. I'm just that person. And I think when Mike was doing the interview, the picture he chose on my arm, I have "Speak the truth, even if your voice shakes."
Yes.
And that's me to my core. So the girls knew everything that was going through. When I had to step down, I mean, you could see the emotion, you could feel the emotion. They knew exactly why I was doing it. They got it. it didn't make it easier for them, right? They're teenagers. They had a really hard time with it. That room was rough. But after the fact, they get it. And they thought the parents were out of line. Even some of them, like my mom was out of line, So thankfully, I mean, kids are smart and they're extremely resilient. So they were able to pick up with the coach they brought in, who's an amazing man, and finish out a really strong season. I was there to watch them. I was there to support them. So, it was something I had to do for me and my health. And they respect it. And that was all I needed. I don't need parents' seal of approval. That my team knew my team was going to push on. They did. They're still going strong. From somebody who stepped down midseason, that's all you can ask for, really.
And will you ever go back to coaching?
That's the $1 million question. Once it's in your blood, it's in your blood. I mean, I coach watching games on TV. I don't know in what capacity. I don't know if I'll head coach again. I don't know that I want the drama that comes with it. I just don't see, everything I see is it's getting worse, not better. And I think now, because we've shown a light on, what parents are doing to coaches that are volunteering their time, essentially, there's going to have to be a culture shift where we either figure out a way to have that coach parent boundary that we used to have exist, or I'll have to do it at like a private school where I get paid a ton more money.
Right? Nothing wrong with more money.
But yeah, it's in my blood. I'll in some capacity, I will for sure. What that is as of right now, I don't know. I'm still getting, some picking up the pieces, getting some me time. I'm putting shoes on, getting back on the court, which I haven't been able to do. So I'm enjoying the time back to take care of myself a little bit. But yeah, once it's in your blood.
Yeah. Give some advice to parents who consistently cross that line. Give them some checks and balances that can prevent them from doing this in the future.
Yeah, I mean, first things first, listen to your kid. I guarantee you, if you asked your kid, do you want me yelling at you, coaching you, telling you what you're doing wrong? They don't. They get it from me. They get it from my assistant coaches. I'm sure they get it from their friends on campus who pick on them for whatever. Oh, you got your ankles broken by so-and-so, whatever it is. They just need you to show up and tell them they did a good job, and take them out for dinner after, or, oh, I know that today's game was tough, but you'll be better next time. You're putting in the hard work. Like, they just need the positive feedback. And if they get so excited for their parents to come, and you can see the transition sometimes in games of the thrill of, oh my gosh, mom, rushed after work and made it here, to she just yelled at me the whole time, and now I got to go home because we lost or I didn't play well, and sit in the car and listen to it. Instead of they don't need it. They're getting criticism from so many places. They don't need it from their parents. Just parent and encourage them. Tell them to, keep working hard. You liked what they did. Focus on the non-negotiables. Oh, I saw that you high-fived so-and-so. That was great. I saw you cheering on your teammates. That was great. Like, we can't just focus on, well, you went 0 for 6. Okay, well, maybe they contributed in 12 other facets of the game. But
right.
The biggest thing is they just need you to encourage them. Give them a hug. Tell them they did a good job. They've got enough coaches and teachers.
Well said, Erin. I can see your passion for what you do. And it was heartbreaking to read that story. Mike G, when he wrote that story for 562, I was like, oh my God. Like, you kind of think you see this happening in headlines all the time. But I think one of those things that I'm still coming to terms with as a reporter is like, no, that's happening right here.
Yes. Yeah. Sadly it is, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm. So I appreciate you sharing your story. I wish you all the best when you settle and when you figure out where you're going to coach again. I'd love to have you back on, and I definitely want to come out and support you. I'll be your cheerleader.
I'll take it.
I'll keep everyone at bay.
I'll take it all day.
I got your back, Erin. Thank you so much. You guys, this is just another message about how you can lose someone that's so vital to not only your future, but the future of young people, your children's future, just because you don't lead with respect. So I'm going to finish with my favorite saying: if you have to speak a word, make it a good one. And we'll see you next time.